it's important for you to understand, first of all, how to position yourself, whether you're fighting as a kickboxer, boxer, fighting some kind of realistic context out there in a street altercation. Your stance is important. The stronger your stance, of course, the easier it is for you to squeeze your trigger, set your opponent up, bridge the gap between you and your opponent. In other words, execute your punches and kicks with good accuracy, good speed, as well as good power. Keep in mind now, as you begin to work in relationship to a target, you must first find your range. The type of opponent in front of you determines your range. You're not going to fight a real tall person the same way you fight somebody really small. The range is going to be different. You're not going to fight somebody big and strong that's very tough the same way you're going to fight somebody that's small, not quite so strong. You're not going to fight a person who's a good kicker the same way you would fight a good puncher. Someone who's a quick lead-off fighter, someone that's real trigger-happy, likes to get in your face right off the bat. You're not going to fight that person the same way you would somebody like sit back in a foxhole, play kind of a waiting game, let you fire first. So keep in mind, the range between you and your opponent, okay, is dictated by one thing. That's the type of opponent in front of you. Once you understand the range and you're able to find that distance or find that range, the second thing we'll work on will be timing, how you set up your timing. Thirdly, the type of timing that you use between you and your target, you and your opponent, will dictate the type of footwork that you use. And then, of course, the last thing we work on is what we call rhythm. Rhythm is always predetermined by the footwork that you're using. Now keep in mind, what we're doing here is I'm trying to create what I call a sense of purpose. All good fighters, all good champions, all good trainers work for this key point here, sense of purpose. And out of focusing on what we call a sense of purpose, it engenders, it creates this thing, this something that feels different. And that thing is what I call confidence. And confidence comes from the degree of self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about yourself, especially when you're out there training. Keep in mind, all fights are won and lost, not out in the ring. They're all won and lost in the gym. So this is where you do your homework. I want to show you how to prepare yourself and to do your homework correctly. Now, some of the things that I'm showing you will differ depending on your physical makeup, your physical attributes, your psychological nature. Keep in mind, we all have different styles. Different styles of boxing, different styles of kickboxing, different styles of what you may call street fighting. And style is determined by a number of factors. A tall person is going to have a little different style than a shorter person. Somebody who's got the physical attributes of being very quick will have a different style of fighting than someone's not so fast. So your physical attributes have a lot to do with dictating your style of fighting. Your psychological nature has a lot to do with your style of fighting. Some people are real trigger happy. They're dying to get in there and bite your ear off or bite your eyebrow and let your blood run in your face, squeeze your head off or what have you. Some people are more laid back to play a waiting game. So your psychological nature has a lot to do with your style of fighting. The point I'm trying to make here is don't let me dictate to you your style of fighting. I'm not asking you to emulate me in any way. Don't try to copy my physical aggressiveness, my power, my speed, or what have you. Pick up the elements which you see that I reflect in you. In other words, to the degree that you see the best of yourself and me, use that to your advantage. Also keep in mind, other things that are going to affect your style will be the kind of opponent in front of you. Like I was saying earlier, you're not going to fight a tall person the same way you would somebody shorter. You're not going to fight a big person the same way you would somebody small. The situation you're in also affects the style of fighting you have. If I'm fighting somebody out here like in the ring that I'm in now, this is about a 17.5 foot, 18-foot ring, I'm going to fight them a lot differently than I would if I'm in a 12-foot square ring. If I'm out in a sandy beach and I'm slipping and sliding all over the place, my style of fighting is going to be different than it would be if I'm on a hardwood floor. So the situation you're in, the environment you're in, has a lot to do with determining the style of fighting that you have. Of course, another situation, another thing which affects your style is what we call your knowledge, and that's what I'm trying to give you today. So new knowledge to help you with your target practice. There's a couple rules that I use in the combat situation. Number one, you always want to neutralize your opponent, neutralize his position before you attack him. Another rule that I have for engaging in combat is never compromise your abilities by allowing your selective skills to be a liability. That means, let's say if you're a boxer or a kickboxer and you spend all your time, your whole life in a standing position, so you know how to punch from a standing position and you know how to kick from a standing position. First time you're in a realistic altercation, a big guy about 220, 30 pounds, he's mad at you, he blindsides you from the side, boom, he pops you. For the first few seconds, you're down on the ground. You don't know how to punch and kick from the ground. He's on top of you, pounding away. For the first 5, 10 seconds you're down there on the ground, you may be able to get back up, but those first few seconds you're going to feel a little helpless. In other words, what you've done is you've compromised. You've spent all your time learning how to punch and kick from a standing position. Now in your first realistic situation, you're on the ground. If you don't know anything about ground techniques, you're kind of helpless. So those of you out there who are boxers, you want to learn some kicking skills. I'm not trying to limit you to just saying we're just going to do boxing techniques, but I do believe this. A man who's got good hands will beat a man that's got good legs any day, hands down.